Hello, I'm Oliver Hödel, and I want to start with a thought. I consider most, if not all, digital systems nowadays as cooperative systems. But why is that, and what are the pillars of cooperative systems from this point of view? First of all, we humans use such systems. They're made for us. Second, they solve a problem we humans have or fulfill our needs. Third, they need some sort of concept appearance, which is the design of such a system. And finally, technology plays a role because it realizes a cooperative system from a technical perspective. So, let us look into the details of what these pillars mean and how we can use, how we may use digital technologies to connect and support people. I pose this is the original intention, the original purpose of cooperative systems to support people and to connect people. These can be services or systems that enable cooperation, communication, and interaction. Think of the human first. We have to define who is it, who is involved, and what are the characteristics of this involvement. But we have to think a bit broader because the human could be a user, it could be a customer, a client, it could be even a market, more or less a group of customers or client. And this human or this market have particular needs or a particular problem. So the next questions we have to ask around the problem are: what is the problem? Why is it a problem? And why are we solving it? So the problem could be needs, like our particular human needs or wishes, demands, whatever defines our human needs or even a need of a market, a particular group of humans. So if we think of all sorts of digital applications that support us humans, think of communication, email, conferencing, and so on. Or if you think of publishing content and sharing content, like clouds or social media, for all these solutions, there was a problem first we wanted to solve with that, whether it is sharing content or it is communicating with each other through digital technologies. And then, of course, we need a design, and the questions we ask for the design are: how are we solving it? What are the alternatives, or what may be the alternatives? And even where can we go beyond known limits or new ways we never thought of? So the design centers around ideas, concept, possibilities, variations of such a system. And finally, there is technology, where the questions are actually: how can it work? What do we need and use? Or what do we have to develop if it's not available yet? So here we're talking about software or hardware, basically. And these technologies are used to enable the design that solves the problem of our human needs, more or less. So these four pillars are, of course, not standalone. In fact, they relate to each other and of course they overlap. For instance, the question here that ties human and problem together is the why. Why is it a problem for humans? Then the second question is the how that ties human and design together. How can we find a design that fits human needs? There's another how that ties together problem and technology. Which problem, how can we use technology to solve the problem? And finally, there is the what that ties together design and technology. What technology is needed to realize the design? What design is needed to use the technology? It becomes obvious that all these connections here and relations have particular qualities or characteristics. For instance, the relation between human and problem has a user research orientation if you come more from the human direction, or if you come more from the problem direction, it's more assumption driven. So these are not exclusive, of course. They somehow are related to each other because our problem-solving approach has either an assumption-driven or research-driven or some mixture, basically. So if we start researching human needs, then it's more a user-driven approach. If we come from the problem direction and assume a sort of problem, then we come more from a problem perspective, but of course they meet at some point. The same is at the how between human and design. If it's more on the human side, it's human-centered. So we design, or we can design a system rather human-centered, or design-driven if the design itself gives the system we want to create its appearance or its characteristics. Again, this is not exclusive. This is more a mixture or some sort of relation, what you see. We have another how here between problem and technology, which has on the one hand the solution-oriented how, which means how can we solve the problem? So the original idea is to have the problem and to find a solution, which is solution-oriented. Or if it's more technology-driven, if we have a particular technology that motivates our problem solution. And finally, we have the what that brings design and technology in relation, where we have on the one side the design, the development process where you develop prototypes, for instance, from low fidelity to high fidelity prototypes in an iterative process. Or we have, from the technology perspective, we have more the implementation, the product implementation oriented approach, where you focus on a final product, you focus on stability, on testing particular aspects. And as we know from iterative design and development cycles, of course, again here, usually you start developing prototypes iteratively and then come to implementation and product oriented stage. Although, if you think of improving systems, existing systems, you could come also more from a product implementation perspective where you try to refine an existing product and improve technological aspects here, for instance. Overall, these pillars that form a cooperative systems, or the process, the progress when creating such a system, contain various methods, processes, tools, and so on, from various fields such as user experience, interaction design, design thinking, if you take the middle part, from design to problem or from problem to design. Then of course there's the human research area where you do user research, market research, which are particular methods and use tools. And then of course there's the technology layer, which deals with the technology itself, which is more or less the software engineering, hardware development, and so on. So all these aspects are needed to develop, to design, and finally create a cooperative system that in the end connects us and supports us humans. And we'll revisit that every now and then, because in the progression of the course we will go deeper in a particular area, in particular fields, and you will learn about these methods and tools and the whole mindset that is related and that is the core and the glue of this cooperative system development and creation and design cycle.